We all know what heat feels like. It's the feeling you get when the sun is shining on you, or when you put on warm clothes from the dryer, or when steam escapes after opening the dishwasher too early. But are all these kinds of heat flow the same? Heat is a type of energy measured in joules. It's energy in the form of random molecular motions. Like all energy, heat energy can flow from one place to another, and cannot be created or destroyed. So, heat flow is the movement of heat. Pretty simple, right? Well, it does get a little more complicated when you start talking about the ways that heat can flow. Heat always flows from a hot place to a cold place when flowing spontaneously. But you can force heat to flow the opposite way by using energy, like in a refrigerator. Heat will continue to flow until the two objects reach the same temperature, which is called thermal equilibrium. For example, if you put your hand on a cold table, it won't feel cold forever. Eventually, the table will have absorbed enough heat from your hand that the table and your hand will be the same temperature since they reached thermal equilibrium. Heat also flows in different ways, depending on whether solids, liquids, or gases are involved. Heat can even flow in a vacuum. Heat flowing in a vacuum is called radiation, and is the transfer of energy through electromagnetic waves. This is how heat gets to us from the sun, and why you feel hot on a sunny day. But today, we're going to focus on the other two main types: heat flow in solids and heat flow in fluids. Heat flow in solids can only happen when those solids are in contact with one another. The process of heat flow in solids is called conduction. Conduction occurs when two objects in contact with one another transfer heat between them due to a temperature difference, like the clothes from the dryer. This happens literally because the moving molecules hit each other. The molecules in the hot clothes hit the molecules on your cold skin, and this causes energy to transfer between them. The molecules themselves do not go anywhere. It's just energy going from one place to another. Heat flow in fluids is a little more complicated. A fluid is any material in a state that flows, which includes both liquids and gases. Fluids transfer heat energy by a process called convection. Convection is when the hot part of a fluid expands and becomes less dense, causing it to rise above the cooler part. And this continues in a cycle that transfers energy. Let's break this down a little more. If you put a pot of water on the stove and turn on the heat, you're heating it from the bottom. This causes the bottom of the water to be hotter, and the molecules move further apart, which makes it less dense. Less dense materials rise over more dense materials, which is why a cork bobs out of the water. This means that the hot water at the bottom of the pot rises and is replaced by the colder water from above. This cycle continues and is called a convection current. Heat rising is how heat flows in fluids. It's worth noting that compared to conduction, this kind of heat flow involves the material itself moving, not just energy. That's what happens when steam escapes from the dishwasher. Hot steam rising over the colder air above it. Heat is a type of energy measured in joules. To be exact, it's energy that relates the molecular motion inside a material or object. Heat can flow from one place to another, like all kinds of energy. But heat only flows spontaneously from hot places to cold places until both places reach equilibrium. Heat flow is the movement of heat. Heat can flow in a vacuum by a process called radiation, which is the transfer of energy through electromagnetic waves. Heat flows in solids by conduction, which occurs when two objects in contact with each other transfer heat between them. That happens because the molecules hit each other, and the faster-moving molecules in the hot object spread that energy into the cooler object. A fluid is any material in a state that flows, and heat flows in fluids, including liquids and gases, by a process called convection. Convection is a type of energy transfer where the hot part of a fluid expands and rises as a cooler, denser part sinks. This causes heat to rise.